The following is a presentation from PokerStars.com. Last time on the big game, uber-aggressive Veldhuis was on a heater.
It is so awesome to have 600 cash games on TV.
While loose cannon Harlow took some hits to his stack, but wasn't going down without a fight.
He folded his c-bet every time.
You know too much stuff.
Am I not supposed to have any knowledge whatsoever?
Man, you're close.
I'm in very solid double-up territory, though.
If you double up once, oh.
That's what I'm looking at.
Outnumbered by pros, he has one last chance to turn a profit. Will he walk away a winner? Find out tonight on the big game.
Where am I? Where am I? Where am I?
This is the PokerStars.com Big Game.
Welcome once again to the big game. Alongside Joe Stapleton, I'm Chris Rose. Tonight there's over $1.2 million in cash on the table as some of the world's best have come to do battle in our state-of-the-art poker room.
Vegan poker player Daniel Negreanu has been living up to his diet and lost most of his stake. He's down over $277,000.
Barry Greenstein has a new nickname, the Tight Cannon. He hasn't played many hands, but he's won the big ones, up over 159 grr.
25-year-old Justin Bonomo will have to learn to fly if he wants his chip stack to get much higher. He's up $203,000.
Veldhuis was stuck nearly $230,000 earlier this week. How about that comeback? He's up almost 43 grand.
The man who wrote the book on Texas Hold'em, Doyle Brunson, has hit a few speed bumps. He's down over 98 dimes.
And our loose cannon is the 39-year-old father of three, Harlow. He risked his profits he won here last week for another shot at the big game. But right now, Russ is stuck over $13,000. He's with Amanda Leatherman.
Russ, at the end of last week, you were up over $16,000. At one point this week, you were up over 80. Any regrets right now?
You know, these guys really took me to school the last few sessions, and it was pretty expensive. So it's going to be time to get in there and make some plays.
Are you ready to mix it up?
I've been trying to mix it up, but I think I'm going to have to really go for it this time.
All right, get out there and do it, all right?
Thanks.
Once again, each cannon staked 100 grand, and in Russ's case, his previous week's winnings as well. Cannons keep all winnings above the initial 100,000, and the loose cannon who's won the most money at season's end earns a North American Poker Tour passport worth 50,000.
Right now, Nadia Magnus is the cannon to beat in order to win that NAPT passport, and Harlow has just 30 hands left to do it in.
At one point, Russ was showing a profit of more than 83,000, but he has taken a big hit, and now he's back in the red. Lex with the Brunson, next to Brunson, and folds. Bonomo's out. Barry raises to 1,400. King Jack for Daniel on the button. Calls. Harlow folds. Doyle, he's in.
Doyle's got them both dominated. Barry won a big pot earlier in the week against Doyle, and we've seen him play very few pots since then.
Queen 8 King. Brunson checks his straight draw. Greenstein with a c-bet, 2,400 with a gut shot.
Barry's semi-bluffing. Even with his tight image, Daniel probably can't lay down top pair.
You are correct, he calls.
Barry and Doyle have different ends of the same gut shot. Doyle's is to the nuts.
And Doyle calls. 8 of diamonds on the turn.
That 8 doesn't change anyone's hands, nor does it provide any additional outs.
Brunson checks.
It does affect board texture since any smaller king just caught up to Daniel.
Barry bets 7,000.
The bear's been in hibernation, but it looks like he's hungry and aggressive. Daniel pretty much has to call this, but he can't be too happy about it. That's a $25,000 chip. Looks like he's thinking about a raise. Maybe not.
You get 18.
Daniel does raise to 18,000. Doyle folds.
Daniel's essentially turned his hand into a bluff because now it looks like he's trying to rep the 8. Either Daniel's got a great read on Barry or he's trying to avoid getting bluffed on the river. Looks like Barry may have gotten caught. I don't see him calling here. Well, he hasn't folded yet. And if he's not going to fold, he must be thinking about a 3-bet. Barry might be thinking that if Daniel really did have an 8, that he would have played it differently. Daniel plays so passively in a lot of spots that sometimes when he plays aggressively, it can look like a move.
There's the repop.
Guess I should have just raised the flop.
Daniel folds.
Barry was able to pull that one off through a combination of image and knowing Daniel's game.
I'll put my money on queens full.
Yeah, well, I had a king. I thought he might have had an 8. I wanted to find out for 11, not for 25 on the river.
Daniel's really not going to like watching this one on TV.
Once again, here are the rules of the big game. Each table lasts exactly 150 hands. Action pre-flop is pot limit, then no limit after the flop. Blinds are 2 and 400 with a $100 ante, all of which is paid by the player on the button. Every player begins with at least 100 grand, but can reload for up to $500,000.
This table started out with over 700,000 on it, but with rebuys, there's now over 1.2 million in cash out there. That's a lot of dimp.
186 grand of it sitting in front of Greenstein, who goes back to his conservative play.
Nice playing with you, Barry. See you at the wrap party.
Daniel raises to 1,200.
Clinches it. The National Steam Service has just upgraded Daniel to 6.5 Hellmuths.
So this is the spot where I'm supposed to like make a move, pretend to be cool because I got the 4 deuce, right?
You're so dominated because I got the key card.
Crushed.
Daniel shows the bluff.
Maybe that win will lower his steam factor a bit. Daniel shows his hand, and even though he's stuck, he's still capable of raising with suited baby double gappers.
Let's see what Daniel has this hand. Oh, it's a suited baby 1-gapper. How cute. And he raises. Russ with a suited 1-gapper.
An adolescent 1-gapper. He has less than 30 hands left.
He calls. Ace-queen for Doyle. Raises.
Doyle with a 3-bet.
Lex, pocket 6s. Calls from the button. Justin and Barry are out.
Looks like a good spot. Looks like not a good spot to do that, just a good spot to see a flop.
Russ does have live cards.
He calls too.
These guys all know Russ is going to have to get it in soon, so expect to see a lot of multi-way pots as they fight over his chips like hungry, hungry hippos.
Great game. 4-7, king, 2 spades. Daniel checks bottom pair. Harlow checks.
Doyle was the last aggressor.
And now he c-bets 19,000.
Since no one has a king, it'll look mighty strong for him to bet into 3 people.
Take it down.
Doyle will win it.
Wins it with aggression and position.
My trouble is I never have a pair or a draw.
Well, Doyle might be complaining about his cards, but Joe, it hasn't slowed him down at all.
Right, you are, Chris. Doyle has been the second most active player pre-flop and the second most aggressive player post-flop. He's down, but he's still getting his money in the pots, trying to turn his night around.
One guy who's got to step on the gas is the loose cannon, Russ Harlow. Only 26 hands remaining to turn a profit. Ace-10 raises to 1,100. Doyle folds. Lex is out. Ace-king for Bonomo.
Bonomo has Russ dominated.
Repops to 3,500. Barry's out. Daniel folds.
Even though Russ may read this as an isolation raise, which it was, he needs to start being the last aggressor because he can't afford to just call, miss, fold every hand.
The cannon calls. King 6-8, 2 diamonds, top pair for Bonomo.
Russ has made the call, and there's the miss.
And there's the check. Bonomo fires 5,000.
I predicted that he would call, miss, fold, so what would be next, Chris?
Well, let's see. He called. He missed. I'm going to go with C, fold.
At this point, hopefully Russ does complete the trifecta and fold. He's drawing very slim.
Nope, he's over the top to 13,000.
This is a bad time to make a move, and that's a pretty weak 2.5x raise. Justin's well aware that as more time goes by, the more desperate Russ will get and have to make moves like this. Justin's not folding, so he's either going to call or raise here.
How about a re-raise to 30,500?
Justin's just re-raised and didn't shove because he wants Russ to come back over the top.
Nope, he folds.
Justin tried to show Russ a shortcut on the long road to ruin, but Russ is sticking around.
Bonomo having the time of his life while time is running out for the cannon. The big game is just heating up. More from Las Vegas coming your way after this.
Well, the pot limit pre-flop doesn't really affect my play at all because I don't ever really make bets that are going to be bigger than the pot, and most pros don't. It's very rare that you see that. The key to having the pot limit is so that you don't have the loose cannon just going all in every hand, because that would be kind of silly. They're just going all in every hand and everybody's waiting for a hand. So it forces the loose cannon to actually see some flops if they want to double up.
Right now, our loose cannon, Russ Harlow, is desperate to double up. He had the chance to walk away a winner at the end of last week.
Yeah, but Russ said no deal at the end of the last episode and risked his profits to come back for another round. And right now, he's not only down 36 grand, but there's a massive 99 grand gap between him and the player he's chasing for that 50K passport, our leading loose cannon, Nadia Magnus.
Russ looks a little dazed and confused.
Well, with just 25 hands left to play, he's got to be feeling the pressure to make something happen.
Doyle folds to get us going. King 8 suited for Lex. Raised to 1,400.
No surprise he's raising Russ's big blind.
Suited 1 gapper for Daniel in the small blind. He calls. Ace 8 for Russ. He's in.
I try not to lie about my hands on these TV games because you get caught.
Ace 6 jack, 2 hearts, top pair for the cannon. Daniel checks. Harlow checks.
Russ has given Lex a chance to fire at this.
He does, betting 2,700.
Lex's bet could easily just be a C-bet, which it is, and Russ checks, so he looks pretty weak. 4 deuce should be an insta-fold, so it looks like Daniel's cooking something up here.
And he cooks up a raise to 7,200.
Russ is in a good spot. Daniel's juiced the pot for the guy with the best hand.
But he folds.
That's a ridiculous fold. Russ just doesn't have enough time or chips to fold there. Why call pre-flop if you're going to fold top pair?
If Russ doesn't end up turning a profit, he's going to regret that fold.
That's confusing.
Yeah, it's confusing to me.
Action back on Lex, who has just king high. Lex calls.
A stone float.
The turn would have given Russ trips.
Allow me. Blarg.
Daniel checks. And Lex checks. The river, the 9 of hearts.
Both these guys were up to the same thing, checking the turn so they can fire a bet on the river without it having to be too big.
There's that Veldhuisian stare.
Daniel's going to have first crack at it.
He bets 9,000.
This is a pretty good bet from Daniel. 9,000 makes it seem like he wants to get called. Looks like Lex might have to reconsider his float plans. Lex could very well fold this or follow through on the float maybe, but I don't see him calling.
He does call.
I will play the board. King Haya? That's good. Nice call. Jeez. What the hell was that? That was sick. I had 4 high.
He missed his draw.
That is just a sick, sick call.
What did you put me on exactly? 4 high? That was sick. I didn't think you had anything on the flop.
He put you on a busted flush draw till the flush hit.
To the flush. That was a really sick call. Did you see that?
Maybe he knows you too well.
Huh?
Maybe he knows you too well.
Well, yeah, but see, I knew he was bluffing, and I guess he knew I was bluffing, and I knew it was one of those he knew that I knew.
One of those fun leveling situations that we get into.
Leveling is when two players are trying to fool or outthink each other by thinking on higher levels.
Bonomo raises. Aces for Barry.
My daddy rolled over in his grave. He knew I was losing this poker game.
Barry raised to 5,000. Daniel folds. Tens for the cannon. We could see some fireworks.
I was going to say that Barry's tight image might hurt him now that he's got a hand, but Russ has picked up what's statistically very likely to be his biggest pocket pair for the rest of the night.
Russ calls.
Even though we know Barry has an overpair, I don't love Harlow just calling here.
Doyle folds. Now back to Bonomo, the original raiser.
If Russ had repotted it, he'd very likely get called by a hand like Bonomo's. And of course, all that action would be music to Barry's ears. Justin may want to call here since he might be able to get both these guys to stack off if he hits a 3.
Yep, there's the call.
This is a big flop for Russ.
4 deuce king, 2 hearts. Harlow checks. Bonomo checks. Barry fires 8,000.
Russ knows that Barry will continuation bet every time. What he doesn't know is that this is the time that Barry has him crushed, and he would never fold in this spot for any amount Russ could make it. This is part of the reason why you want to play these hands more aggressively pre-flop. You don't have to make these decisions in marginal situations. Russ is looking at his chip stack. He started this hand with 62,600. This call would be for 14% of his chips. Russ really can't afford to call here and face another bet on the turn.
The cannon calls.
Justin probably has a pretty good idea he's beat.
And he's out.
Russ has committed a lot of chips to this pot. We know he was crushed from jump, but now that he's pot committed, he basically should have just tried to get it all in before this.
6 of diamonds on the turn. Harlow checks. Greenstein bets 20 grand.
Okay, now for reals, Russ has no choice here. It's fold or all in. Barry bet 2/3 of the pot. Maybe if Russ can come to the determination that Barry's basically said he's pot committed and therefore has a hand, Russ can get away from this. Barry's been playing super tight all week. I don't know what Russ thinks Barry could be betting with that Russ is beating.
Well, that probably didn't change anything.
He's right, but that's a bad thing in this case.
I'm all in.
Harlow shoves, and Barry calls.
What do we have, ladies and gentlemen? He's got 1 pair.
I got 1 pair.
You got 2.
My sim.
Boy.
Russ can't even bear to look at it.
Feel the love, Barry?
A lot of people are rooting for me, but none of them are here.
Nothing personal against Barry, just the rest of these guys want the cannon's money.
Nadia's rooting for me.
That's Nadia, her leading loose cannon. After 277 hands of play, this could be it for Russ Harlow. It's come down to 1 card. He needs to river a 10, or this 2-week odyssey for the father of 3 from Connecticut will end right here. It's a 6.
That's it. Good game, guys. Thanks.
All right, man.
Good game, man.
Harlow's brave return for a second week did not pay off in the end. Now he's leaving empty-handed. Seat open. See who fills it next. Welcome back to the big game in Las Vegas, where Barry Greenstein's now up over $250,000, thanks in part to knocking out our loose cannon Russ Harlow. And right now, a disappointed Russ is standing by with Amanda Leatherman.
All right, Russ, you got it in with pocket 10s right there at the end. Are you happy with that decision?
Well, you know, I've been getting abused by everybody at the table, and I took a stand against the wrong guy.
Well, that's okay. You still pocket 10s.
Yeah, I mean, the turn didn't really change anything. Either Barry had me beat or he didn't. And I think that 10s are going to be good there enough of the time.
You played last week, and you came back this week to chance it all. Are you still happy with that decision?
I am. Absolutely no regrets. I mean, you know, at the very least, my wife and I got to come out to Vegas for the first time and got a chance of a lifetime.
Well, we loved having you. I hope you had a good time.
Thanks very much. I
All
sure
right,
did.
Thanks.
All right, so it's time to fill Russ's seat, and we've got a new player, Joe.
This is Alan Barry. He's a 26-year-old Rutgers grad who calls New Jersey his home. Sorry, Alan. He's had a lot of success on the tournament circuit, but the big game is no tournament, and I'm curious to see how he does playing in our cash game with the stakes this high.
Is that a sign you don't want to sit next to Doyle?
I think he's just allergic to nosebleed stakes.
Action on Barry. Big slick. Raised to 1,400. Pocket tens for Daniel. Of course, that's the hand we just saw Russ get knocked out with. Daniel calls.
Alan isn't a loose cannon, but he's only got a few hands to try to make any money here.
Here with a pocket pair.
Don't expect we'll see him folding.
Nope, he calls. Doyle's out. Lex is in. And so's Bonomo.
Doyle screwing up the family pot.
King, Jack 10, 2 diamonds, a set for Daniel. Veldhuis checks. Bonomo checks with an open-ender. Barry, top pair.
Barry with top pair and Daniel with a set. We could see a lot of money get in here.
Barry puts in 3,000.
Normally top pair on this wet of a board could use some protection, but we know Daniel's got him smoked.
Daniel just calls.
You sick of I just came on here for 20 hands, just coolered all you guys.
Just to what? Ship it all in?
No, just coolered you guys.
Alan Barry folds. Lex is out. And Bonomo folds. 9 would have made Justin a straight.
Justin didn't have great odds to call there.
Barry checks.
Neither player can really like this card.
Daniel with the two-handed check. And the 8 of hearts on the river.
Even Alan would have made the bottom end of this straight.
Barry checks.
Barry might like his hand, but there's no value in a bet. He'll never be called by a worse hand.
Daniel fires 10,000.
Now Daniel's got a hand that could be called by worse.
Barry calls.
I have a set.
Eights. Okay, nice one.
What do you know? I want a pot.
Well, Daniel's making light of the fact he's been getting crushed all week, Joe.
Daniel rakes in that pot with over 33 grand in it and is now only down about $300,000. One of the big reasons why? No one seems to be folding to Daniel Negreanu's bluffs.
Especially his good buddy Lex Veldhuis, who a few hands ago called him down with just king high. Lex explains why as we go behind the poker face.
There was one hand where I raised pre-flop with king 8 of clubs, and both Daniel and the loose cannon called. Up until this point, Daniel and I played a lot of hands, and we've both been very, very active. But I think the most important thing in his hand is that the loose cannon is underneath 100,000, and he's gonna have to make a move soon. And Daniel kept telling him that he should make a move soon, or at least hinting at it. So they both call. The flop is ace, jack, 6, complete airball for me. They both check. I still want a continuation bet it because I don't think I can get the showdown with king high. And it's still a good board where they can just fold any miss. So I bet 2,700. Now Daniel makes 7,200, and at that point I immediately thought, why would you check raise with a real hand and not give the loose cannon an opportunity to make some weird move because he wants to get above the 100,000? And Daniel kept referring to that, so I think if Daniel had a really big hand, then he would have waited to see if the loose cannon would spaz or make any weird move. So as soon as Daniel check raised there, I just didn't believe any of it. And loose cannon folded, and I called on the flop. The turn was another ace. He checked. I kind of just wanted to get the showdown at this point, and I think I had a big chance of him checking the river, so I checked behind. The river wasn't very pretty. It was the 9 of hearts. There were 2 hearts on the flop, so if he did check raise with a flush draw, then he would have gotten there. But I thought he was trying to fake a value bet, betting 9,000 on the river. And I thought about it for a while, but then I figured I just wanted to stick to my flop read, which was that he had absolute garbage. I was just hoping he didn't have king 10 or something like that.
I was sick. I had 4 high.
Luckily, he had 4 deuce, so king high won.
I know it's a cliche at this point, but that call was absolutely sick.
Lex and I played at a tournament, it might have been the World Series, where he played most of the hands, and he went from the short stack to the chip leader like 3 times. You remember?
Who, you?
Him.
And he's been yo-yoing all week here on the big game. Action folds over to Alan Barry on the button. King 5. Raises to 1,300.
Alan wants to make the most of his time here, it looks like.
Doyle calls with a pocket pair. Lex is out.
Lex is out?
I know, surprising. 5-4 deuce, 2 diamonds on the flop. Doyle checks the best hand.
Doyle probably likes his hand, but he checks to play in flow.
Alan Barry checks top pair. 9 of spades on the turn.
Even though the 9's an overcard, it's a small part of Alan's range, which is super wide from the button.
Brunson fires 3,000.
Alan's got to be thinking the same thing about the 9, and Doyle could be betting a 4 or a deuce at this point, too.
Alan Barry calls. The river, Jack of diamonds.
2 overcards out there, and the flush draw comes in, so neither player can be too happy about that.
Doyle leads out to 7,000.
Doyle must think Alan would have bet a flush draw by now. Alan's hand isn't all that different from Doyle's, though it is second best. I'm not so sure Doyle would bet a worse hand than 5s at this point, but that's up to Alan to decide.
Alan Barry calls.
2 8s.
Ace?
8s.
8s.
8s are good.
Nice hand.
Doyle takes down the pot worth 24 grand and welcomes Al to the big game. Keep your chin up, kid.
Meanwhile, Doyle is still trying to fight his way back to even here tonight. He's still down over 75K.
Keep your chin up, Dolly.
Chin's up all around. Everyone's played a great game.
Well, Daniel would beg to differ. He's stuck 300 gur and folds. Alan Barry's out.
Lex and I are in.
Spike fold.
If you have aces now, I'm going to cry laughing.
Bonomo calls. Barry folds.
Unless I flop something, then I'll probably be quiet. But
Doyle's trying to create himself a bit of a hot streak.
The flop. Tray 10 king, 2 diamonds. Bonomo checks middle pair.
Doyle looking at continuing.
He does, betting 2,500. Bonomo quickly calls. The turn. 4 of diamonds.
Justin's picked up the nut flush draw.
And checks.
Now that Doyle's made a pair, he may stop bluffing.
He slows down. 9 of diamonds on the river makes the nut flush for Bonomo.
This is a pretty ob value bet.
Bonomo fires 6,000.
Doyle's got a pair of 4s on a 4-card flush board.
Pops him to 20 grand.
It's obviously a stone bluff, and it might have worked had Justin not had the ace. But since Justin's only losing to a straight flush, this is pretty much a slam dunk value raise for him, even though it's probably pointless.
Bonomo's been crushing the big game this week.
Could be why Doyle's taking a shot at him here.
At the beginning of this hand, Bonomo had turned a profit of nearly $215,000.
And he's going to be adding to it here.
He re-raises to 52 grand. And Doyle folds. Bonomo takes down a decent-sized pot, and oh, he's mugging for the cameras as well.
Another big hand ahead.
Another blocky.
Very close.
So even for the great Doyle Brunson, some days you beat the game, and some days the game beats you.
I can usually tell when a player that I don't know is from the internet by watching him, how he plays for a few minutes. And there are a lot of good players now. I'm telling you that the internet does manufacture some good players. I think that they're still a little bit weak sometimes in the people skills, but as far as the rest of the skills that is required to play poker, boy, they're excellent. I give them a lot of credit.
Doyle is currently surrounded by internet kids, so if he wants to talk to any of them, he'll need a mouse and a keyboard.
14 hands left this week, and it sounds like the players are far from done.
We can take this game to Bellagio, keep on playing.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, guys, I got to get home.
Ace king for Bonomo. Raises to 1400. Barry folds. Queen 10 suited for Daniel.
A call here would be pretty standard.
And there it is. 8-7-4. Daniel checks. Bonomo checks. Ace of clubs gives Bonomo top pair.
Daniel also picks up a flush draw, so we should see some action with this card.
Daniel fires 2500.
Daniel's building himself a pot in case the club hits. Justin's got top pair, top kicker, and the best hand.
And calls.
Doesn't want to raise and chase away his client.
The river. Deuce of spades.
Daniel missed.
And checks.
This is a pretty easy value bet.
Bonomo makes one, betting 6,500.
Daniel's not folding. He's cutting out a raise, but it's looking more like a donation to me.
Raises to 22-5.
Justin's got top pair, and there's nothing really strong enough out there for Daniel to rep with a check raise, except for maybe a set.
Bonomo calls.
Surprise, surprise, you got it.
And wins another 54 grand in that pot.
That's my 58th consecutive bluff that's been called in a row.
You're really good at it.
I wasn't going to do it, and then I'm like, oh, 65? Yeah, I guess I can raise him. He's only got one pair. What the
Justin Bonomo can afford to buy all the pairs he wants now.
I won't say it.
You want what?
Please do. We want to hear it.
Yeah, we want to hear it. Come on, throw out the gems.
Nope.
I swear.
Southern gentlemen just couldn't say such a thing.
I've tried to win as many pots as possible. I think I've won 4 anyway. And I've tried really hard.
Actually, Daniel has won 15% of the total pots. Lex has won twice as many and is up 54K, while Justin has won less pots than Lex, and as we just saw, is crushing the game for 265K, proving that it's so much better to win the juicy pots.
And that small sliver belongs to Alan Barry, who just joined the game a few hands ago.
I've been hearing a lot of "you've got it" and board.
You got it. Yes, you've got
Board.
it. Board. King high. Psh, who can beat that?
Alan been watching from the green room.
It's funny because if I actually ever had a pair, then I'd be in good shape.
You actually have to show down a hand once in a while before you can bluff. Once
I
in
never
a while.
get one though.
No.
You think I folded any winners? Just kidding. I mean, you think I was?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Daniel calls Barry's raise.
I think I was like, well, yeah, make a big lay down here.
We did see Greenstein run a big bluff on Daniel earlier tonight.
I made the biggest bluff out of my life against you today.
Now it's Alan Barry calling with 6-3 suited. Might want to talk to Doyle about that.
That hand hasn't been too lucky for Doyle this week.
Queen, queen, 5, 2 clubs on the flop. Daniel checks. Alan Barry checks.
Barry Greenstein's got a flush draw.
And fires 2,000. Daniel folds.
Semi-bluff C-bet from Barry Greenstein.
Shocking. Alan's out. Barry's patented C-bet takes down this pot. He also happened to have the best hand, and now he's got a profit of more than $242,000. We're back. Stick around. Welcome back to the big game in Las Vegas. He's Joe Stapleton. I'm Chris Rose.
There's no crying in poker, but especially not when you're up 265K.
Won maybe 2 pots at showdown. I mean, I can't remember another one.
Don't ask me. I don't even want to think about your pots at showdown.
Why?
Because they haven't been good for me. It cost me 100K.
Action folds over to Alan Barry.
What did I win? 2 pots at showdown, maybe?
I'll ask. How many pots at showdown has he won?
Hang on that thought, Amanda. Alan Barry raises and wins.
No, don't worry. We'll keep folding.
All right, here's that stat, Amanda.
Daniel went to showdown 14 times and won 3 of them for 21%, while the big game hunter, Justin Bonomo, has had the goods 86% of the time when he's turned his hand over.
Helps explain his massive profit.
I don't know what Stapleton's going to say that means.
You're not bluffing enough. You got to try harder.
Maybe I'm not bluffing enough at showdown.
Here's my advice to Daniel. Never get less than 12 hours sleep.
Yeah?
Never play cards with a guy who has the same first name as a city, and never get involved with a woman with a tattoo of a dagger on her body. Now you stick to that, and everything else is cream cheese.
Did you just quote Teen Wolf?
It's a seminal film of my generation.
Action folds over to Alan Barry. 9 tray again.
Can he make it 2 in a row at 9 tray? Nope.
It's just so easy. Why don't you even do it, right?
I would have folded.
Doyle and his neighbor back at it.
Now you're going to see a flop trips or something?
That's what I'm trying to do.
Nope, something better. Doyle flops a full house and checks. Lex bets 600.
Lex has donated a bit, but whether Doyle calls or raises, he'll look awfully strong. So if he really wants to fool Lex, I recommend that he fold.
Doyle fires.
I just hope he had a jack.
Oh, snap. He flopped the boat.
Finally flopped the full house.
That was on the way. Yeah,
Another hand.
I've had a lot of big hands.
Underplayed another one, though.
The only chance I saw to get out if he had a jack.
Yeah. But that would have been sick. I didn't know. Yeah, no. Yeah, you're getting it.
Lex knows he'd have gone broke with a jack.
And he didn't fill up.
Despite that win, Doyle's still stuck over 100 grand.
Win a 200K pot.
That would have been funny.
Barry Greenstein's had an amazing week while playing very few hands, and he'll sit out another. Daniel folds. Alan Barry raised to 1,400. Doyle and Lex are out. Pocket 8s for Bonomo. Calls. 7-6 tray. Bonomo checks.
This could be trouble. There's no reason for Alan not to bet this.
He bets 2,200 with top pair and a gut shot.
Bonomo's got an overpair to the board.
And raises to 7,000.
Even if Alan's behind, which he's probably not convinced he is, he's still got plenty of outs. And my guess is that since Alan's been waiting in the green room all week, he's probably pretty itchy to play.
10 is going to really make the pain go away.
Alan Barry calls. 4 of diamonds on the turn. 2 pair for Alan Barry.
Alan's hand improved, but he really doesn't want to hit his gut shot anymore since that would put a straight on board.
Bonomo fires 13,000.
Alan can't like that bet. He's got 2 pair, but it is a scary board.
But he still calls. The river, the ace of clubs.
Justin's got to be at least a little worried since Alan stayed with him the whole way.
Bonomo checks.
Even though it's the best hand, I'm not sure Alan can bet this.
Alan checks.
Check, 2 pair.
So Alan Barry wins a $43,000 pot against the man who's been steamrolling the table. Just a few hands left for everybody to get a little more cash when we come back. Welcome back to the big game, where we are in the home stretch of our 150-hand week. Our loose cannon, Russ Harlow from Connecticut, has been knocked out and replaced by that man, Alan Barry, who folds. Queen-Jack for Doyle Brunson. He folds. 6 tray suited. That's been a popular hand this week. Lex raises.
Doyle played that hand 3 times this week. He lost huge with it twice.
Bonomo repopped. Negreanu, king-queen in the big blind.
Bonomo's been using his position over Lex all week, and somehow he's mostly been right. Daniel knows that this hand could very well be ahead of the ranges of these 2 knuckleheads.
Daniel calls.
Lex still facing Justin's re-raise.
And calls.
No one can get away from 6-3 suited this week.
3 to the flop.
I check.
Daniel checks in the dark. 8, ace, 4, 2 spades.
All right.
Lex checks.
Bonomo's wondering if a c-bet in position will take this down.
He does have second pair. Bonomo bets 7,500. Daniel folds. So's Lex.
At your end. 6-3.
It was a suited?
Of course it was suited. What is he, crazy?
And Bonomo strikes a familiar pose.
Hey guys, last hand of the night.
Last hand of the night.
Not even gonna look, I think.
Straddle?
No thanks.
Running so good.
I'll bet it all in the dark if somebody wants to.
I'm down.
You will, for sure.
It's only 60. I can handle that.
Are you serious? Are you serious?
I've been in bad shape.
Yeah, you can just deal one hand and just deal it out. I want to see, actually, so you guys should do it.
Bonomo raises.
Ooh, I had it too.
Action folds to Allen.
A little more TV time for Allen as he thinks about his decision. You look good in the lights, Allen.
And he calls.
Last call for Gamble Hall.
Jack, King 10, 2 diamonds, middle pair, and a flush draw for Alan Barry, who checks. Bonomo checks top pair.
Pretty huge flop for Allen.
4 of diamonds as Alan Barry makes his flush.
That's right, it's an even bigger turn.
He slow plays it.
It's a trap.
Bonomo fires 3,000 as he walks into it.
First, Allen milks the TV time. Now he's acting.
Allen just smooth calls. Jack of hearts on the river.
This might be an action killer.
Allen checks.
Allen's praying Justin has a jack. Justin's wondering if he bet his king, if he'd ever get called by a worse hand. Maybe a 10, yes, but we know those 3 diamonds are going to get him called by a hand that does have him beat.
Bonomo checks, and Alan Barry wins the showdown.
Nice check behind by Justin. And Allen's facial mugging tells me he wishes he bet the river.
But the late arrival comes in and leaves a winner. Alan Barry walks away up nearly 15 grand.
Doyle Brunson lost 101 dimes while Daniel got massacred for over $333,000.
Greenstein and Bonomo are walking away with close to $250,000 each. And our loose cannon, who came back a second week to increase his profits, got nothing.
All right, guys, that's it for tonight. You know what's really remarkable? Justin, in just 2 appearances on the big game, has made nearly $500,000.
Yeah, we're real happy for him.
I agree. Good job. I agree. It was a good job.
That's it for tonight. I'm Amanda Leatherman saying goodbye for now. And remember, if you've got the cash and the guts, there's always a seat open at the big game. Good night, everybody.
For Joe Stapleton, I'm Chris Rose. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Congrats on nearly $500,000, jeez.
Sorry, what?
Say congrats on nearly $500,000. That's a lot. Let's go do something.
Oh, I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
Fun week. Not for you, though.
Deck was cold to me.
The preceding was a presentation from PokerStars.com.